B2B Cambodia, the portal for business use in Cambodia.
I'm B2B Cambodia's Darshana. Thanks for watching. Today we're here to speak with Mr. Stephen Higgins, the founder and managing partner of Mekong Strategic Capital. Before founding MSG in 2014, he worked for ANZ Banking Group for 18 years, most recently as the CEO of ANZ Royal in Cambodia. Altogether, he has amassed 3 decades of experience in financial services and has also advised on some of the largest transactions in the kingdom. Hi, and thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you, Dash. Wonderful to be here with you.
Of course. Thanks so much for your time. So firstly, I just wanted to get your broader thoughts on Cambodia's economy, the capital market, and also the investment landscape. So Cambodia's economy in 2023 was forecasted to grow by 5.4% by the World Bank. But of course, as we know, most industries did report that the year was very challenging. So what is your own personal assessment of the performance of Cambodia's economy in 2023?
2023 was tough. At the start of the year, we put out a forecast of 2 to 2.5% growth. Now that we're at the end of the year, we think that was probably a bit on the optimistic side. It was one of the most challenging years economically that Cambodia has had in the last 2 decades.
So specific to some of the main pillars of the economy, the 4 pillars that they say regarding exports, tourism, real estate, could you kind of give us a little more detail into those specific sectors?
So exports were down significantly during the year in terms of what you'd think of as the main drivers of the economy here. So garment exports were down typically 18 to 20% for most of the year. And that then flowed through into employment levels, factory closures, etc. So that was a big negative. Tourism, despite some of the statistics showing that tourist numbers had grown, that includes those that come across the border from Vietnam and Thailand, and they're not people that are spending money in the economy here. So if you look at air arrivals, which we see as being the most reliable indicator of tourists, for most of the year, they were down over 60% on pre-COVID levels. So they're still very negative. In the last quarter, they started to pick up a bit, but still well down. The finance sector had the worst year for 20 years. Credit growth was only 3.6% for the 11 months to November, which, that is a recessionary number. The other sectors, property is a bit of a disaster zone here and will be for probably at least the next 3 years. So it was tough. Beer sales were down. Car imports down over 40%, over $900 million fewer cars imported this year. And that says a lot about what's going on out in the economy.
And what measures do you think that the government can take to maybe stimulate the economy and help out?
A lot of these factors are external to the economy, so it's hard for the government to do much about them. Some of the things they can do. So at the last government private sector forum, they announced that reserve requirements from banks, instead of increasing from up to 12.5%, which is where it was pre-COVID, would go back to 7%, which was their COVID emergency measure. It basically means there's another $2.5 billion worth of liquidity flowing into the market. So $2.5 billion in the context of a $30 billion economy, right? That is a big number. So we started to see in December, things started to pick up a little bit. Loan arrears started to improve slightly. So up until November, loan arrears hit 6.7%. And they started the year at 3%. So that is a big change. From 3 to 6.7, December was probably okay because liquidity is back in the market. So banks are looking to lend again. Deposit rates are coming down. So if you're a depositor, probably not such great news, but interest rates are starting to come off slightly.
And you mentioned that there's been this big shift over 2023 and I think some positive signs in December. So if you had to kind of make your own forecast for 2024, what would you say will be, the new changes in the Cambodian economy?
So we think probably around 5 to 6% growth in 2024. And Part of that is because 2023 was so bad, right? Low base effect. But that liquidity will help. In 2023, you had property coming off, right? It won't improve in 2024, but instead of going down like that, just flatlining should help. Tourism, we actually expect to get even better in 2024. There are more flights coming in, they're cheaper, so that should help tourism numbers. The demographics of Cambodia are more favourable than any other country in the region. So as you look out to 2040, right, which is only a bit over 15 years away, Cambodia, the working age population is forecast to grow 18%. It's pretty big. Vietnam is only forecast to grow 4%. Right? So Cambodia will have a lot more workers in terms of percentage coming in than what Vietnam has. Thailand will shrink by 14%. So if you're looking at where should I invest in Asia, you want to go where there's going to be more workers, and that's Cambodia. So we see those factors really supporting growth over the medium term.
And touching upon what you were talking about, 2040, and how the population will be growing and the workforce will be growing. As we know, the government has set these broad goals for 2030 to become upper middle income country and of course to become a higher income country by 2050, the Vision 2050. So if you had to reflect on those goals, do you think that they're achievable and realistic?
Yes. Now, in part, they get a free kick because the GDP of the country needs to be rebased. It's a complex mathematical issue in terms of how they calculate it. But basically, when they go and work it out again, the size of the economy and therefore GDP per capita will be at least 30% bigger, right? Just because of changing how they do the measure. So that's going to help a lot. But then those demographics, right? They're hugely in Cambodia's favour. You're seeing more and more manufacturing and investment come in. The infrastructure. The one thing that needs a lot more focus and support is the education system. So to reach those higher income levels and to avoid what's known as the middle income trap, you need a high quality education system. And at the moment, that does not exist. The government is looking to do a lot to try and build that, but there's a long way to go. And it's going to require a lot more investment.